Hey everyone, this is the Rewriter writing in. Today's video is an exciting one, as it's going to be the start of a new series where I take two franchises and combine them into one story. Now, I'm a huge Halo and Metroid fan, and with the gameplay reveal of Metroid Prime 4 generating tons of hype, I felt that now was the time to do a story about the two of them coming together for an adventure. I've also been a huge fan of the YouTube video Haloid ever since I saw it as a little kid, so that was a major inspiration for this video. But as I go back to check out the video every once in a while, I'm always shocked that no one has ever made a story about this concept. So this is me taking a crack at it, and I hope that you enjoy. And with this short intro out of the way, let's dive into Halo x Metroid. What dreams could a Spartan have that wasn't pain or war? There were no happy childhood memories, no safe places, physically or mentally. There was only combat, evolved combat, for which each Spartan 2 was bred for. So, what is a Spartan to do for 4 long years aboard a derelict spaceship destined for marooning on a desolate planet or destruction in the inferno of a star? Wait, that was what a Spartan does. There is no rest or relaxation. There's preparation. Hardwired into that cryopod were mental simulations, interactive recordings of previous events, each more taxing than the last. From rescuing hostages from the wreckages of their homes on the planet Reach to holding the line in New Mombasa, these simulations ensured that a Spartan's mental capabilities remained as efficient as ever. The Arctic temperature of the pod keeps a Spartan's physique intact, although motor functions would need to be regained outside of the pod for optimal skill retention. While Chief trained in that pod, there was Cortana. Databanks with millions and millions of pieces of information ready to be shared, but with no one to share it with. She debated pulling John out of the pod on multiple occasions for just one short conversation with another living being, but she knew this to be a foolish endeavor. And so, she kept herself busy, reciting every system's function aboard the remaining husk of the Forward Unto Dawn. She could tell you which galaxy they were floating in, which solar system, what the nearest planet they would pass, all down to the exact coordinates. And she did this for 3.5 years so that she had some sort of purpose again, even if that purpose was to ask herself questions she already had the answers for. But something changed, be it a lapse in her coding or the fact that they had drifted so far out of any UNSC charted territories. She no longer knew where they were. No exact coordinates, nothing. An AI that doesn't have the answer to something is deemed obsolete. An AI grasping at questions they'll never reach and finding themselves more and more irritable at every attempt is known as rampancy, a telltale sign of outdated software. The vast nothingness of space and the irrelevancy of time did nothing to cure this growing rampancy. That is, until something finally happened. 7 months into Cortana's rampancy, she found reprieve from her endless questions by projecting herself onto the control deck, reminiscing about her brief time aboard the Pillar of Autumn, having intellectual banter with Captain Keyes and calling out Private Dubo for slacking off on the job. Simpler times, she would tell herself, even though in reality they were anything but simple. The threat of the Covenant now a fading memory, dust and echoes. She closed her eyes as data streams ran throughout her eyelids and across her face and opened them to a bright light. It was a freighter of some kind, though she didn't know which, a normal occurrence these days. But before she had time to get angry about that, the ship tossed to either side as multiple cables bound the space corps. A raiding party. Now was the time to wake John up. If AIs could feel adrenaline, Cortana's data-streamed body would be coursing with it. Bouncing from control nodes, Cortana raced towards John's pod and funneled herself back into the main node that connected to the pod. The 4-year-old ice crystals that cocooned the Master Chief in a barrier of ice and steel began to crack and splinter as the vague silhouette detailed into an armored super soldier. Just about to save another hostage from the wreckage, he awoke to a bright light and obtuse ringing in his ears. His HUD flashed with life once again as he looked down to see Cortana with her arms crossed and a devilish smile across her face. Where other AIs would be intimidated by a raiding party of unknown origin, this was another day at work if you asked her. "You know why I woke you, don't you?" Cortana smirked. "You need me," John dryly remarked with not an ounce of emotion, pulling his hulking armored body out of the pod, moving his hands and arms around in a circular motion. "Been waiting to say that this whole time, haven't you?" She shook her head in mock irritation. "It's been 4 years, 1 month, and 10 days since you've been out, I think, and I don't even get a 'how you doing' from you." "You think?" he asked, this time with a slight mix of emotions, sarcasm, and concern. "Yeah, well, time flies when you're having fun. Anyway, something's taking control of the ship and is boarding as we speak. It's not the Covenant, I know that much," she remarked. "I need a weapon." He pulled her chip out of the control node and walked over to the Spartan laser Johnson gave him in his dying breath and a pair of SMGs that he had set on a shifted piece of cargo those 4 years ago. Slinging the Spartan laser onto his back and grabbing his SMGs, one in each hand, the Master Chief was back. The ship rattled violently as Chief moved his way through the run-down corridors that were a mess of wire and shattered steel. Sparks from downed wires burst pockets of light that lit the dim passageways. Chief clicked his helmet's lights on, projecting out a narrow beam that penetrated the thick darkness around him. Up ahead, he heard the many sounds of footsteps as he stopped behind a wall, turning his helmet's lights off so as not to give away his position. Peering around the corner, Chief had no words for what he saw. Aliens that he had never seen before, not even in the extensive UNSC databases that he had to memorize in his youth at Oni. They were rifling through the ship, ripping out parts and passing along weapons that they had stolen from the armory. "Cortana, what are these things?" Chief asked. I don't know. I'm accessing UNSC databases. Even the most restricted ones make no mention of these creatures. They aren't a part of what used to be the Covenant. Looks like you're just going to have to fight and scan them. We'll figure out the details later." Using the zoom function on his HUD, Chief inspected the creatures in front of him. They were far more bug-like than the elites, grunts, jackals, and other species that made up the collective of the Covenant, aside from the drones. Their skin ranged in colors from green to red to yellow and silver. Teeth gnarled and sharp, eyes piercing yellow and red. Claws and feet sharp as their teeth but triple the length and width. Their weapons were attached to them rather than dangling from the hip or stored on the back, all of them equipped with some sort of arm cannon on one arm and plasma-based blade that protruded from their other gauntlet. They weren't covered head to toe in armor like the Covenant troops normally were, only parts like shoulder pauldrons and leg armor, nor did they seem to have any sort of energy shielding for further protection. Their language was also unknown, so there was no use listening in to their conversation. Chief had all the intel he needed and strode out from behind the wall, equipping one SMG in each hand. Lining up 2 targets, Chief fired a hailstorm of bullets that rained upon them. It felt good to fire a weapon again, to be useful again. The unknown soldiers targeted by Chief dropped to the ground in a puddle of green blood. Arm cannons were primed instantly and shot out orange balls of energy that hurtled towards Chief. Upon hitting the walls around him, the energy shot out by these cannons were tearing holes in the steel around him as a pencil through paper, to use such an archaic example. Chief knew that he needed to be careful. These weapons were advanced, much more so than his own, and he didn't want to test the durability of his armor when hit by one, even with his advantage of energy shielding. He assumed as much for the arm blades, since they glistened that same unnatural shade of yellowish orange. Blasts flew past him as he mowed down the remaining units in this small group. The last one had gotten behind him and grabbed him by the throat, though not being as tall as Chief in full Mjolnir armor, they were far nimbler. Reaching for his knife that was affixed to his side, he shoved it into the creature's arm as it reeled back. A line of green blood followed his arm in midair as he pulled away from Chief, kicking him a couple feet away. The energy pulsated angrily through the monster's blade as it began to slash violently at him. He used his knife to deflect the first slash, but the energy melted the basic steel of his short blade easily, and he threw the tang to the side. Maneuvering around the chaotic frenzy of slicing, the monster made a downward slash, giving Chief enough time to kick his arm, bending it backwards, causing the blade to slice through the monster's neck. Its head rolled off its shoulders as its whole body collapsed onto the ground. The energy blade that beheaded the beast retracted back into the gauntlet. Standing over the dead body, Chief scanned it, sending its basic info to Cortana for analysis. While she was sorting through the data, Chief knelt, pulling the cannon off the creature's arm and examining it. It certainly wasn't Covenant or Forerunner, but it packed a punch, so if he could make this work, he was going to use it. Fiddling around with it for a moment, he found a way to make it fire, almost putting a hole in his head. "Hey, there's 2 of us in here. Be careful, would you?" Cortana remarked. Giving an accomplished-sounding sigh, Chief grabbed the weapon in both hands and started making his way to the bridge. The Forward Unto Dawn shook violently once again, almost throwing Chief to the ground. "Okay, John, I've dug up some interesting things. Apparently, these creatures are recorded in a database, but not the UNSC's. I have managed to access a different one belonging to something called the Galactic Federation. These creatures that you just killed are called the Uchu Kaizu, but they're known as space pirates. These space pirates are a collective, like the Covenant. These foot soldiers come from the planet Urtagus, which they call Homeworld. Not surprising. I found this logbook entry on them, which reads, Space pirates wield galvanic accelerator cannons and forearm-mounted scythes in combat. This species seeks to become the dominant force in the galaxy, and their technology may help them realize this goal. Ruthless and amoral, the pirates care little for the cost of their ambition. Only the results matter, and they take these very seriously. Be on your guard, Chief." "Noted," was all Chief replied. He made it to the smashed-in door of the deck and saw more pirates tearing the ship apart. But now there was a huge one with them, ordering some of the pirates to different parts of the ship. Looking out the main window, Chief could see their ship, an almost spider-like design, piercing blue circular windows in the shape of eyes all around its one long head, spikes protruding all around the head and legs like a fur coating, and 3 giant legs that it used to hold this carcass of a ship in a death grip. He could see troops ascending and descending throughout the legs of the ship, as the storing of crates of metal, armor, and weapons coming aboard the legs caused it to shake the Forward Unto Dawn each time. Pulling up the cannon to his chest height, he started to open fire on the pirates scurrying around the deck. The cannon was melting their armor cleanly with each blast, killing them in 1 or 2 shots. One shot at him, hitting him directly in the chest, completely stripping his shields and leaving him staggering back. This cannon truly was a force to be reckoned with. Once he regained his shields, he popped out of cover, firing a few blasts, and then slid back into cover. The large one, the elite unit Cortana pointed out, making a sarcastic remark about them dealing with enough elites, charged at him, grabbing him by the helmet and ripping the cannon out of his arms. He hurled Chief across the room with ease as he came crashing into the wall. It charged at him once again, but this time, Chief was ready, pulling his Spartan laser over his shoulder and started charging it up. The red beam flickered and reflected off the elite unit's armor as it bared its teeth, ready to tear him apart. Just as it opened its mouth wide and closed in for the kill, the laser fired, melting its head off with ease as it collapsed into him, knocking him to the ground. The other pirates were dispatched with the SMGs that he pulled off his sides. "I need to get on that ship," Chief said. "Good thinking. No use staying on this hunk of junk any longer. Plotting a course for you to get aboard one of its legs," Cortana replied. Hordes of pirates started chasing Chief as he sprinted through the husk, following the route that was displayed on his HUD. Reaching one of the legs that dug its giant claw into a section of the ship, he pressed a button that initiated an elevator of sorts to make its approach. Fighting off the hordes with his SMGs, Spartan laser, and a mix of their own weapons, the door on the legs opened, and he jumped in, slamming it shut as a wave of energy collided with it. Going up the leg truly revealed how destitute they were out in the vastness of space. Though forward unto dawn was nothing at this point but rubble. It was probably a good thing that they were attacked by the space pirates. The reserve power left on it would have only kept them alive for a few more months. Reaching the top of the leg, the doors opened to another group of pirates that began firing at him instantly. Grabbing one of them as a body shield, he charged his way forward, blood and energy splattering into the air and onto the walls and floor. While Chief was dealing with the horde, Cortana was mapping the layout of the ship and guiding him towards the command deck. "This tech is foreign to me, John, but I think I can make it work. Get to the command deck and we'll try to plot a course back to known UNSC-controlled space," Cortana almost shouted over the noise of energy blasts and the howl of space pirate screams. Something about Chief mowing down waves of alien troops aboard an alien vessel felt nostalgic to Cortana, like she was placing herself back aboard the Truth and Reconciliation, saving Captain Keyes. It felt good to be doing something useful again. She could almost crack a smile, but she could reminisce later. Right now she needed to help Chief get to the controls. Once they arrived, he cut down the pilots and looked at the dashboard. It was controls upon controls, lights flickering and flashing all over. "Okay, Chief, plug me into that command console. I won't fit perfectly, but all I need is a small window and I'll get through," Cortana said. Plugging her into an outlet that looked reasonably close to the size of her chip, minutes went by as nothing was happening. "Cortana, what's the holdup? We need control of this ship," Chief asked, with almost a slight amount of panic in his voice. I know, I just can't, John. I can't do it," she screamed. "Cortana, slow down. You can do it. I need you to know you can," John consoled her. Mumbling to herself that she could do it, she was finally able to break into their system. Chief nodded at the control panel as if he could see her face, and she closed the door behind them, slamming it shut as pirates banged and shot at it. "Can you get us out of here?" Chief asked. "Out of this situation? Yes. Out of this sector of space? Not quite. The coordinates of this ship's next destination are locked to descend to the planet below us. The database has this planet as being called Talon 4, and it seems that they've made a base of operations here. The plan was to bring the supplies they stole from us back down to the planet. I'm not able to change course. It requires an iris scan from the captain," Cortana explained. "Fine, point me in their direction. I'll bring them back here," Chief replied. "Not so fast, cowboy. You disintegrated the captain's head with that Spartan laser of yours. There's no way for us to change course, but we can accelerate their plan, go to the planet sooner. And we're in the head. If we drop the legs, we won't have any army banging at our door," Cortana answered. "Do it," Chief ordered. "Way ahead of you, separating the legs now," Cortana stated. The head began to shake as the legs were being ripped away. The pirates behind the door began to howl in fear until moments later when it was just silence. Looking out the window, Chief watched as the Forward Unto Dawn drifted away into the darkness of space, giant legs piercing its sides. The coffin that held them would become a coffin for the space pirates that sought to pillage a corpse. There was peace, if only but for a moment, as an explosion ignited the blackness of space in front of them in a frenzy of color as another cruiser off in the distance exploded. And if that weren't bad enough, something flew past them that they couldn't explain. "Was that a dragon that just flew past us?" Cortana asked, dumbfounded. Chief didn't reply as he watched the vessel that was chasing the mythical beast. As they watched the chase, sirens began to blast as Chief was thrust to the floor. A chunk of the cruiser that exploded flew right into their ship, slicing directly into the control center. The holograms and lights surrounding the dashboard all shut off as the ship began to free fall towards the planet. Chief quickly pulled Cortana out of the control center, ran into one of the corners, and locked his suit down. "You just can't help yourself. You have to free fall from orbit every time you reach a planet, don't you? Cortana sarcastically spoke, taking his silence as all the confirmation she needed. Even though the ship was in disarray, and they were crash landing towards an unknown and probably hostile planet, she felt safe, at peace. A peace she hadn't felt, well, ever, really. Her rampancy, which had plagued her for months now, wasn't on her mind, for once. The landing was rough, lethal for anyone else, but John wasn't anybody else. Your head still attached to your body, John? Cortana asked. A nod up and down answered her question. Unlocking his suit, Chief unfolded himself, all 7 feet of him standing up and walking out of the wreckage. He looked around to see that they had landed outside ruins of some kind. Daylight bounced off the snow that had covered the area in a pristine sheet of white. There was a lake that ran along the base between 2 sets of ruins. Well, there goes our way off this planet. Let's try to find that vessel that was chasing the dragon. They don't seem like pals. They might be able to help us, Cortana stated. Attaching a dead pirate's cannon to his own arm, Chief began to wander through the emptiness of the snow-capped range ahead of him. As he was scaling the side passage up the mountain, a small creature with a shell of ice attacked him. It lunged at him as he sidestepped, shooting blasts at it that kept bouncing off its shell. After another lunge, he kicked the thing on its side and blasted it in the stomach, creating a hole that spilled the creature's hot guts onto the frozen snow. Yep, definitely a hostile planet. Keep your guard up, Chief. This creature was probably the least of your concerns, Cortana cautioned. Jumping across oddly floating pieces of the cliffside, he reached a glowing blue door that had no button to open. He banged on it a couple times, even kicking it once. You can't just brute force everything, Chief. Give me a minute while I scan the door, Cortana admonished. But before she could get another word out, Chief shot the door with an energy blast. Icicles cracked and broke off as the worn-down door shifted open. Can't brute force everything, right? John questioned. No one likes a know-it-all, Cortana admitted. Making his way through the lit-up corridors, past electric creatures that he had to nimbly evade, he reached a courtyard. Walking past a crystal formation, he was suddenly knocked to the ground as that crystal was no crystal at all, but the protective shell of another creature. But this one was 5 times the size and had teeth longer than the creature's entire body. Dodging out of the way of its massive bite, he aimed for the stomach, which had little effect on this creature. John, the shell on its back is not as solid as the other creature's was. This appears to be its weak spot. Aim there, she ordered. Following her orders, he waited for another bite to come, and when it did, he jumped on the creature's head and began blasting the shell repeatedly until it shattered, revealing the squishy and squirming matter underneath it. Pumping its back full of energy proved effective, as it dropped the creature down with a roar. A pillar of snow erupted behind him as another creature appeared out of the snow. Repeating the process, he downed it with relative ease. Ascending the ruins proved to be a harder task than Chief realized, considering how broken down these ruins were, and on top of the fact that every creature he encountered tried to kill him. Climbing a rusted and cracked tower led him up to a door that seemed to still have power. Blasting it caused it to open to the dark and desolate hallway, ominously lit by lights in a sequence leading him further into the depths. Opening the next door at the end of the hallway put him in a room with monitors and test tubes with space pirate blood flowing through them. The Galactic Federation database has the translations for their language. The data seems to suggest that the space pirates have been experimenting on themselves, implanting technology that they've scavenged from all over the known galaxy. Looks like it led to a lot of fatalities in the earlier parts of the process, but they seem to have some living experiments somewhere in this facility. It's grotesque. This isn't our fight, but we can't let these abominations get loose. You should destroy this facility. It should bury a good amount of these pirates along with it, she suggested. Venturing deeper into the facility revealed that it was not as abandoned as they thought. There was a full force of pirates working there. Some larger pirates were floating in these giant test tubes, their bodies twitching in pain once buttons on the monitors outside of their glass prisons were pressed. But something was off about all this. Like this wasn't just random experimentation. This was organized and instructed. But why? There was no use trying to reason with them. so Chief rained down energy hell upon them, splattering blood all over the glass that held the test subjects. He had caught them completely off guard, and so made this encounter trivial. Jumping down to stand amongst the carnage that he had caused, he investigated the glass to see the pure anger and hatred that exuded from the lab rat. It was writhing and squirming, trying its best to break from its bondage and crush the life out of him. Chief empathized with this creature, seeing himself undergoing the horrendous augmentations that he had endured. But then the creature stopped writhing around, floating still, and he could almost make out what looked like a smile as a reflection came into view that grabbed him and slammed his helmet into the glass before throwing him to the ground. Standing to his feet, dazed, he looked at an even greater monstrosity in front of him, a synthetic nightmare with bits of flesh bursting out of the sides. Its arm was replaced entirely with a version of the energy scythe, but this had a far larger and deadlier-looking blade. There were two of them, each standing 9 feet tall, making Chief look small by comparison. He shot a blast directly at the head of one of them that bounced off without even leaving so much as a burn. It ripped the gauntlet off him and slashed into his chest with such incredible speed that he couldn't react to it. Clutching at his chest, the shields burst off him as his suit went into alert mode. The creature stood over him, popping his helmet open to the sides, displaying the skull of a space pirate, but layered in a coating of the same energy that powered their weaponry. The creature screamed as he did this and sent his robotic foot down on Chief's helmet, knocking him out. When Chief started to come to, he tried to move his arms and legs, but was unable. He was bound in energy cuffs that wrapped around him and was in a kneeling position in between the synthetic nightmares. He was in a very large Colosseum-like room with ancient writings and symbols scattered all over the tan stone walls around him. Something large was at the back of the Colosseum. He could see it breathing. A voice then behind him rang out. "So it really is you, isn't it? A Spartan warrior, nay, the Spartan. The Reclaimer, was it?" The voice laughed in derision, walking in front of Chief. He wore advanced armor made of the same material that encapsulated the once living space pirate, although he maintained his organic nature. And this creature was in neither the UNSC nor Galactic Federation's databases, naturally. "And here I thought you had died, but that would have been far more honorable than the truth. In actuality, you hid. I didn't take you for a coward, but what's the human expression? You learn something new every day?" Cortana began to curse him out, but he couldn't hear her, of course. He continued, "And how did you find yourself out here, so far away from your human companions in those foolish Halo rings?" Chief kept silent. "You humans are so predictable, thinking silence is strength when it is not. No matter. My curiosity got the better of me. Your answer would have mattered little, and certainly wouldn't have changed your fate in this situation." One of the pirates stumbled anxiously towards him, talking in their dialect that sounded like nails on a chalkboard. "These creatures really are as foolish as they come, but as you humans say, you have to play with the cards you're dealt. You're not my only issue, Spartan. I have another nuisance to deal with. It was enlightening for you to meet me, I'm sure, but this is where your travels end. Die well, Reclaimer." He waved a hand to the creatures at his sides as he and his group left the Colosseum. The door behind him slammed shut. It was dark, no lights from any screens or holograms, and the sun had mostly gone down, leaving a slight orange hue to coat the room. That creature waiting in the back corner of the room emerged, revealing itself to be that dragon that they had seen earlier. It crawled its way to the center of the room. The lights on its wings and throughout its armor began to glow that despised shade of orange. It stretched its wings out. The full size of this creature reached the top of the ceiling, and its wings touched the walls. "That guy doesn't play fair. He couldn't, as you humans say, throw us a bone and take these energy cuffs off us. When we get out of this, please choke the life out of him. For me," Cortana angrily spoke. "If we get out of this," Chief corrected her. The dragon screeched, jumping into the air as its feet lit orange and it slammed to the ground, sending him careening into the ancient walls that barricaded him in with this beast, who Cortana informed him was named Ridley, the commander of the space pirates. The weight and power of Chief's armor caused more damage to the wall than the wall did to his armor, as it left a giant crack that spilled out with dust and earth. Scooping him up from off the ground, Ridley screeched once again, but this time his chest plate started to light up reddish-orange as the mechanisms controlling his jaw began to spin and twist, opening the black hole of his mouth. It was as if Chief were about to be thrown headfirst into a volcano, as the glow started to make its way up through the dark. But that last attack from Ridley had short-circuited the bands containing him, and he was able to start breaking through. But it was taking longer than Cortana would have liked, as she yelled for Chief to get a move on before they were fried. Just as Ridley cocked his head back to unleash hell upon them, Chief escaped his grasp, falling through his claws as Ridley volcanoed a stream of fiery energy into the wall, melting a hole there. With no weapon to use, Chief knew that he needed to use Ridley's massive size to his advantage. Ridley swiped his tail across the room as Chief ran, jumped above it, and continued to sprint in the opposite direction. Turning around, Ridley spread his wings and glided towards Chief with incredible speed as the dragon reached out with his claws to pummel him, but he dodged just in time for the monster to collide into the side of the wall, causing a pillar from the ceiling to fall to the earth beside him. Turning itself to face Chief, it unleashed a volley of fiery energy at him, which he blocked using a pillar that had collapsed, and sent the ruin emblazed with energy hurling into Ridley's face. The pillar broke some of Ridley's teeth, and the energy burned his armored jaw and some of the flesh that remained. He ran at Chief, slashing wildly with his claws, destroying the ancient architecture with each slash and strike. He managed to pin Chief to the ground, and using one clawed finger, stabbed him in the stomach, piercing right through his shielding. Blood started to flow from his body as Ridley put his gnarled face close to Chief's and opened his mouth wide to incinerate him. Chief heard a crack as he looked to the side. The wall that Ridley had burned a hole through had started to break, causing the whole arena to begin to crumble. Large chunks of ancient rock began falling. One large piece fell onto Ridley's spine, disorienting him and sending him reeling. Injured, but not too terribly, since his suit had injected him with meds, a feature he could thank Cortana for implementing when he was on ice, Chief was able to get back to his feet. With Cortana pointing out the exit that had been smashed open, he stumbled to it, but Ridley's tail grabbed him. The creature crawled to him, but one incredibly sharp rock buried its way into his tail, severing it. Ridley screamed as Chief removed the tail from off him and jumped into the exit door before the entire building collapsed on top of Ridley. Smart thinking getting Ridley to dig his own grave. How's your stomach feeling? Glad to see the medical upgrade I had installed worked. Your pod was just about the only thing that did work on that ship, Cortana said. Thanks, was all Chief replied. While walking through the desolate hallways of the ancient ruins, Cortana continued, I was able to dig up a few more things while you were dealing with Ridley. The space pirates used stolen technology, that part we knew, but the technology that the guards who knocked you out were implanted with is dubbed as Promethean by the Galactic Federation. Albeit they don't know where this technology originated from or how the pirates got their hands on it. That pompous windbag that we had the displeasure of meeting is still unknown, but when one of his lackeys informed him that she was still alive, I did some investigating and discovered that the vessel that chased Ridley when we were in space belongs to a bounty hunter named Samus Aran, who works with the Galactic Federation. She's our best bet for helping us destroy the facility and getting off Talon 4. We just have to find her. Assuming she's still alive, of course. Cortana, you're going to want to see this. Chief stopped her. They were in a mausoleum with tombs and murals all over the walls. Looking at it all revealed an awful truth. They depicted an ancient race, translated by Cortana, called the Chozo. They were light years ahead of humanity in technological achievement and advancement. They were conquerors of the known galaxy. It showed the passage of time, where they laid down their weapons and armor and donned robes, becoming peaceful and inquisitive. Their curiosity led them to discover a species called the X-Parasite, with the capabilities of destroying entire civilizations by replacing them, mimicking them until there was no one left. Fearing for their own safety, the Chozo scientists scoured the galaxy for a solution, until finally creating the solution: Metroids, entities that feed off of living organisms. The paintings detailed the Metroids that were then unleashed on the X-Parasite horde that was heading straight for Talon 4, consuming them. The scientists were regarded as heroes, beloved by all. Other species came to them for guidance and knowledge, but the only race that came to them who could match their prowess was a species specifically named, and that was the Forerunners. Together, they created inventions such as the Sentinels and Oracles, who did their bidding and stored their collective knowledge. But the paintings portrayed the hiding of the Metroids from the Forerunners. Then the unthinkable happened. The Metroids attacked the Chozo, wiping them out and sending the Forerunners and all other species back to their own sectors of space. The last of the paintings revealed the burying of the scientists, whose tombs laid before Chief and Cortana. The Forerunners were here. They worked with the Chozo. This Promethean technology is Chozo. And then there's our captor, who looks just like the Forerunners depicted. A living, breathing Forerunner. That's impossible. How could we not have known about any of this? Cortana became furious. Her blue, holographic body warped into an angry crimson. Cortana, what's happening with you? Chief asked. I'm angry that the UNSC hasn't done more to search out the Forerunners, protect us against other organic life-ending massacre at the hands of a species we don't know about. Again, I'm sick of humanity always being on the back foot, always in threat of annihilation, she shouted. We didn't know about the Chozo until now. The Forerunners never mentioned them in any of their terminals. How are we supposed to defend ourselves against a force we don't know exists? That's just it, John, that we never know anything. We're always in the dark, and every other species in the galaxy wants to kill us. I'm tired of holding the fate of humanity on our shoulders. I'm tired, John. Her voice began to sink. Tired? How's that possible? What's really going on here? The forgetting of time, the freak out aboard the space pirate vessel, and now this? Calming down, she answered, AIs have a standard life of 7 years before the new model replaces them. This new model replaces them because an AI gathering knowledge for any longer period than that goes rampant. Basically, psychosis for AI. I was activated on Reach on November 7th, 2549. The date, at least the last time I remember, was December 12th, 2557. I've been active for 8 years, John, and I'm starting to lose my grip. I have to be deactivated, or I'll become a threat to you. This is the end of the line for me. It's not going to happen. This technology here is advanced. Maybe we can replace some parts, get you back to full strength, and risk becoming a puppet to some Forerunner? I know this isn't easy to hear, John, but telling you this now is taking a lot of pressure off me. None of this has been easy. I just wish that you had thought out earlier. We could have had more time together. What am I supposed to do? He asked. When the time's right, you'll know what to do. I'm sure of it. Her tone sounded lonely, like she was talking to herself, like she had already lost him. But before they could discuss the situation further, the door on the other side of the room exploded open as a space pirate's corpse splattered onto the ground with a giant hole in its chest. She stepped through the opening, the bounty hunter Samus that Cortana had mentioned. Without a second thought, she opened fire on him, blasting out energy projectiles far faster and with greater accuracy than any of the pirate's weapons had. Chief rolled out of the way, landing behind one of the tombs. When he peeked out, he saw nothing and sat back down, but there was now a small bomb placed there. In mid-vault over the tomb, the bomb exploded, sending him flying to the ground. He landed next to the dead space pirate, who had his arm cannon and energy scythe still attached to him. Ripping both off and equipping them, he turned around as Samus jumped into the air, and then jumped back, defying gravity, and landing across from him. Both pointed their cannons at each other and fired, as each blast disintegrated each other's. Chief closed the distance by dodging the blasts and igniting the energy scythe, slashing at her cannon in an attempt to disarm her, but there was no getting that cannon off. She blocked an attack with the cannon and kick-flipped off his chest, landing and readying her cannon all in one motion. The head of the cannon shifted into the head of a missile as she fired it at him. He ran, taking cover behind one of the statues as the missiles crashed into it. Giant chunks splintered off and attempted to splatter Chief, but he maintained his place behind it. One missile lodged perfectly into the knee region of the statue, causing it to crack and shatter. The debris was everywhere now, and the smoke caused the room to become clouded, giving Chief enough time to push the statue, freeing it from its ancient holds of rock and dust. The statue began to tumble, causing the mausoleum to shake and crumble as it crashed down, rocketing smoke and dust across the room with tremendous force. Once the great statue fell, Chief looked around, seeing nothing, hoping the statue had done its job. "John, she was on our side. We need all the help we can get, and you squashed that. Literally," Cortana remarked, irritated. "She was a bounty hunter. They have no allegiance to anyone but themselves. We can figure this out. We always..." Chief's body shot with pain as an electrical current surged throughout his suit, stunning him. Samus walked in front of him, analyzing his armor. Her cannon had shifted once again as now electricity buzzed and sparked around its new form. She kicked him hard in the stomach, sending him crashing down to the rubble ground. She pointed her cannon at him. "Who are you?" she demanded of him. "Someone who's a long way from home. Help me off this rock or stay out of my way," Chief warned. "Making threats from your position is unwise. I don't have time for this." Her cannon glowed, readying a shot. But Chief's system rebooted, and he kicked her legs out from under her as she fell face first into the ground. Chief shot up, grabbing the back of her armor and throwing her into the fallen statue. Crashing into it, she looked up to see Chief running at her at full speed, his arm and fist raised. Quickly looking to the other statue that still stood, she raised her cannon up and, switching to the grapple feature, shot out an energy hook that latched onto the arm. The grapple hook tore her away from the crater that she had made in the statue mere moments before Chief's fist would have connected with her helmet. His punch tore the crater in half as he looked up to see that she was now atop the other statue. She fired yet another type of projectile, this one like sniper blasts of lava. One connected with his knee as it burned the knee pad badly, almost to the point of melting it off. Sidestepping past the blasts of lava, he gathered chunks of debris and started hurling them at her. Climbing around the statue, Samus was able to avoid most of the rock until one landed directly in her path, breaking the piece that she was on and sending her towards the ground. Then she jumped off that piece and landed in front of Chief. The two began to spar hand to hand. Samus was quick and landed speedy punches and kicks, but Chief was stronger, landing slower but more powerful hits that had Samus stepping back. The two were locked in a duel with no clear victor in sight, but the end of that fight would never come, as the militia of space pirates, no doubt hearing all the commotion, rushed in. There were several elite units among a load of standard pirates. Grabbing each other by the throat, they saw the horde pile in and released each other. The pirate elites laughed as the other units began to fire at them. They could finish their fight later. Now was the time to take down these pirates. Leaping in, Chief grabbed one of the pirates as he tore its energy scythe off his arm, taking the arm with him. Green blood gushed as he peeled the severed arm off and attached the scythe to his own gauntlet. He slashed and chopped through the pirates like they were nothing, mowing them down with relative ease. The elites focused on Samus, charging at her. She switched to her freeze blast and shot one of the elite's feet and legs, stopping them in their tracks. Another one got close, taking a swing at her, but she jumped behind it and grappled onto its neck. Landing atop a nearly destroyed statue, she pulled, hanging the elite high in the air as it clutched at the hook line that wrapped around its throat. Pulling hard, she snapped its neck and began firing her electrical wave beam at the next one. It clutched at its armor as it was being fried by the electricity, but still managed to fire a shot into Samus's chest that knocked her off the statue and into a group of pirates. They started slashing at her armor, but laying down, she blasted the heads off of several pirates until she had the room to get back to her feet. Chief was still mowing down the hordes until he was grabbed by an elite and held in the air by the throat. He sliced the elite's arm off and plunged the blade deep into the pirate's head. He left the blade in there, grabbing a cannon instead and blasting the rest of the small group. All that was left was the one elite, and both Samus and Chief charged up and fired their shot, one at the chest and one at the head, creating two giant holes as the creature fell backwards to the floor. After both taking a breath, they slowly faced each other, aware of each other's cannon. "You're not a space pirate." That much was already clear. The space pirates have never concentrated such a large force on one planet before. Whatever they are doing here, it's big. We may not be on the same side, but there is more at stake than our rivalry. We could use each other's help. But make no mistake, if you intend to backstab me, I will put you down," Samus warned. "We help each other, then never see each other again. That works," Chief replied. "Such a smooth talker, John," Cortana remarked. "Save it," Chief muttered under his breath. "We have to reach the labs underneath the Phazon mines. Energy readings are off the charts there. I've been there before. Follow me," she instructed. As they made their way through the Chozo ruins and Magmore caverns, Chief asked, "What do you know about the threat we're facing?" Samus answered, "The Galactic Federation and the Space Pirates have been at war for years. Whenever there's cases involving Ridley, their commander, or Metroid sightings, they call me. The Galactic Federation was able to keep the Space Pirates at bay for a while, but once they got involved with the one who calls himself the Diadact, their capabilities increased. Their weapons became far too advanced for the Galactic Federation to match with. I've been tracking the Space Pirates for weeks, until I reached the Orpheon, the cruiser above this planet that exploded, as Ridley resurfaced. He was far more advanced than he was the last encounter, and so I followed him to Talon 4. Upon reaching the planet, I encountered the Diadact. He was far more powerful than I anticipated, but I escaped, and that's when we encountered, and you know the rest. This Diadact you speak of, I encountered him too. His race was once known as the Forerunners, and the paintings in that mausoleum suggested that they worked with the Chozo. The Forerunners built the Halo rings, installations capable of galaxy-wide destruction due to the threat of a species called the Flood that could overtake worlds. The Forerunners have long since been dead, but there's no mistaking him as the last living Forerunner. The Diadact led the Space Pirates here specifically, meaning that he knew about the Chozo technology that has lied dormant here for millennia. But his goal remains a mystery, Samus questioned. After killing more space pirates and various wildlife, they reached the labs housing more experimented on pirates like Chief had seen before. Samus scoffed at the pirates and their disregard for life. Analyzing the screens, Samus saw how the Promethean technology was being implanted in all of the pirates, slowly removing all semblance of organic life in them. "We have to destroy all of this. We can't let their experimentation get too far, or they'll become unstoppable," Samus said. "Let's get to the bottom of the energy surge before destroying any of this. We could end up doing more harm than good," Chief reasoned. Nodding her head in agreement, they descended further into the depths of the lab, and it only got worse from then on. Reaching a dilapidated section of the lab, Chief couldn't believe what he saw. There, in one of the test tubes, was an infection form, squirming around. "This can't be real. Has to be genetically engineered. We wiped out the Flood." Cortana spoke again, after what felt like an eternity of silence. Samus walked up to it, observing it, and then observing Chief. "From the way you're reacting to this creature, this must be that Flood you were referring to. It doesn't look very dangerous." "It is, you fool. Don't go anywhere near it," Cortana screamed, trapped in Chief's helmet. Chief spoke for her. "It is dangerous." Samus turned on a monitor next to the infection form that showed a video demonstration of an infection form being let loose in a contained area. And then from a vent on the top right, they let a Metroid loose in the same box. The infection form jumped at the Metroid, trying to infect it, but the Metroid overpowered it, draining the life from it until it dropped with a thud, lifeless. The Metroid was still in perfect condition, and one of the fully implanted Promethean soldiers came into the box and grabbed the Metroid. That's where the video ended. "The experiments make sense, Chief. Metroids drain the life out of any living organism. The Diadac's men became sentient machines for all intents and purposes so that the Metroids wouldn't pose a threat to them. Genius, but also terrifying. We have to put an end to this, she explained. They have living Metroids here. This is far worse than I could have imagined. And if what you say about these Flood are true, then the Diadact has 2 galaxy-murdering weapons at his disposal. I've seen enough. We have to destroy this place before it's too late, Samus exclaimed. Then a bright light desecrated the darkness that overshadowed them down in the depths of the labs. Running down the hallway and into the chasm led them to where the surge had been coming from. The chasm was huge, acting as a holding cell for a giant Metroid that was being electrocuted. Metroid Prime. Its cries rang out loud down there, with Metroid offspring being dragged through tubes that ran throughout the chasm. Standing and watching this horror unfold was Ridley and the Diadact. They turned around as Samus and Chief started killing the pirates one by one. Ridley roared and flew at them, knocking Chief to the wall with the stub of his tail that he had left. Samus saw the scales, and the skin on Ridley's face had melted away, and its piercing red eyes held fiery anger and hate. It grabbed Samus and flew across the chasm, slamming her into the walls as it threw her to the ground. Chief got to his feet as he saw the Diadact standing in front of him. You're doing far more harm to the rest of the galaxy than you realize, Spartan. I have the chance here to make sure that a Flood outbreak never happens again. Isn't that what you have dedicated your life to ensuring too? The Diadact condescendingly remarked. Master Chief fired 2 energy blasts that knocked him back. You're a fool, Reclaimer. This chasm will be your tomb. With that, a helmet formed over around his head, a shield projected on one gauntlet, and on the other hand he pulled a hilt off his side that turned into an energy-bladed greatsword. He lunged at Chief, deflecting the blasts with his shield and slicing at him, stripping the shielding every time he connected a strike. Back with Samus, she was flipping over Ridley's claws as he slashed at her, and she peppered his energy core on his chest with blasts. Ridley clutched at his core and roared, spewing his fiery energy all over, burning Samus's armor. She flipped back, shooting missiles at his wings to ensure that he stayed grounded. Chief dodged and sidestepped the sword strikes and got the Diadact with a right hook straight to the helmet that sent him crashing down. Don't you understand? The threat of the Flood could never happen if we use Metroids. They're the only beings in the galaxy that can wipe out the Flood with 0 risk of being infected themselves. The Chozos were fools for hiding their existence from us. Imagine all the good we could have done with them, how many worlds we could have saved. Humanity stood on the brink of total annihilation because of the Flood, Diadact exclaimed. Pushing Chief back with his shield, he jabbed the hilt end into Chief's visor, cracking it, and kicked him. And what happens when the Metroids rebel like they did with the Chozo? All life in the galaxy ends too. The Metroids are too powerful to be controlled. They will overthrow you. They have to be destroyed, Chief retorted. The Diadact took another swing, but Chief grabbed his wrist and pulled, ripping the sword out of his hand. He started striking with it, but his shield was strong, causing the sword to bounce off it wildly in other directions. Even for Chief, this sword was heavy, not meant for any normal human to wield. Once Samus destroyed the energy layer of Ridley's wings, he dropped to the ground, causing the chasm to shake violently. Large pieces of rock were crushing pirates who were frantically running around the underground facility. Spewing more fireballs and energy, Ridley used the energy to box Samus in, and was finally able to pin her to the wall and claw at her armor. While she writhed in pain, Ridley also crushed her cannon arm, rendering it useless for the rest of the fight. Chief was striking at him over and over, but to no avail as the Diadact weaved and blocked every attack. When Chief went for a downward strike, Diadact got underneath the sword and shoved the shield up, hitting Chief back and sending the sword that was in his hand flying into the air. Diadact leapt into the air, caught the blade, and landed on Chief with his shield, pinning him to the ground. My kind were fools to lock me away when they did. They all suffered a gruesome end because they failed their military commander. I will not be locked away again. Thrusting his sword next to Chief's head and throwing the shield to the side, he began to wail on Chief, punching him repeatedly, cratering him into the ground. As Ridley was about to end Samus with one last spew of concentrated energy, she mustered the rest of the strength that she had left, shifting into the morph ball, and timing a bomb to send her directly into Ridley's mouth. Ridley choked as Samus burrowed her way into his organs of flesh and technology and ready to powerbomb. Ridley clawed at his chest, trying to rip Samus out of him, but it was too late, as lights projected out of Ridley's mouth as he uttered his last roar. The bomb exploded, chucking flesh and metal all over the arena. The explosion was enough to shake the entire facility as the lights began to flicker and Metroid Prime cried in agony. The explosion sent Samus shooting out of the stomach and next to Metroid Prime. Ridley's head flew in the air and landed next to the Diadact as he was attacking Chief. "I don't want to kill you, Spartan. I respect your prowess. I want you to be my reclaimer. Serve in my army. You'll be more than a soldier. You'll be a god," Diadact shouted over the chaos. Then a loud alarm rang out as the Diadact looked up from Chief to see that Samus had freed Metroid Prime. "You fool, what have you done?" Diadact shouted, grabbing his sword and running at Samus. He slashed her across the stomach and was poised to thrust the energy-dripping blade through her head, but he stopped, dropping the blade to the side. He was lifted into the air by Metroid Prime, who slowly, painfully drained the life out of him, until he was an armored husk that she disposed of by ripping him to pieces. Both Chief and Samus stood up slowly, having sustained heavy damage from their separate bouts. Metroid Prime, however, wasn't finished, and started hovering over to them. "John, that Metroid is not fully organic. It has technology coursing through its veins. I can take it down," Cortana frantically exclaimed. "I can't let you do that, Cortana. There's no guarantee that I could safely retrieve you afterwards," John answered. "There is no retrieving me, John. My mission is over. You've saved me countless times. Let me save you now." "Just get me close. I can get inside the Metroid and destroy it from there," Cortana demanded. I can't do that," John stuttered. "I'm sorry, but you have to, or you'll both die. Goodbye, John." That was the last time John ever heard Cortana's voice. Taking the chip out of his head, he launched it towards the control panel, and it landed directly into the slot it needed for her to get into the system. She was going to miss his incredible luck, amongst everything else. Brute forcing her way through the system, she mustered every bit of power that she had left. If she were a human, she would be screaming in pain from the torture of it all. But she wasn't a human. She was an AI. Something her cluttered and tortured mind used to gain clarity. AIs were designed to make human lives better, and that was what she was going to accomplish here and now. Accessing the system, she forced herself into the Metroid Prime's code and started ripping it apart. Outside the digital world, Samus and John were suspended in the air as Metroid Prime was draining the life force out of them. Cortana screamed as she tore it apart from the inside out. Dropping the two of them, Metroid Prime uttered a screech unlike any being as it was being slaughtered from the inside. Finally, it tore in half as its offspring also began to tear in half. The control station was malfunctioning, triggering its most dire response, self-destruction. Pulling Samus to her feet and putting her arm over his shoulder, Chief ran with her, leaving the chasm, but looking back at the console one final time. "Goodbye, Cortana," John solemnly said as he led him and Samus out of the facility into the safety of the outside world. The facility was blowing up all around them. Technology that would doom all life in the galaxy was being buried under the ruins of a civilization long since extinct on a planet long forgotten about. With Samus guiding him, they made it back to her ship at the overworld, and placing her in her seat, she turned on autopilot, which sent them blasting out of the atmosphere as the planet began to implode from the destruction of the facility. Cortana was gone. That was something John wasn't going to be able to cope with for a long time. "We made a pretty good team back there," Samus admitted. Chief was silent, but nodded his head in agreement. The flight back to the Galactic Federation HQ felt like an eternity of silence, as John's mind couldn't stop thinking about her saying the word goodbye. He was broken, far more so than he would ever let on. Past the steely, powerful, and stoic exterior, he was hurting, vulnerable even. Once they arrived at HQ, the Galactic Federation forces led them to the command deck for debriefing. I'm Fleet Admiral Castor Dane of the Grand Army of the Galactic Federation, and you are on board the GFS Olympus. I don't know you, soldier. Which regiment do you come from? Not from any regiment around here. My vessel was floating in space on reserve power when the space pirates found me. I attempted to board their ship and flee, but was pulled down to the planet Talon 4, Chief answered. I see from the report that you submitted, Samus, that the space pirates were attempting to weaponize Metroids. Is this accurate? The Fleet Admiral asked. It is, sir. We were able to thwart their plans before they could leave the planet, Samus replied. You've done us a great service, soldier. Is there any way that we could convince you to join our forces? We could use a powerhouse like yourself to push back the remaining space pirate forces, Fleet Admiral Dane inquired. I'm afraid not, sir. I need to return home. Can you point me in the direction of your communications array? He asked. I'm sorry to hear that, but I understand. Samus, show him the way. Leading him to the communications array, Chief punched in the signal coordinates of Earth. He heard a very familiar voice. Fleet Admiral Terrence Hood of the UNSC Navy speaking. Your signal coordinates do not match our data bank records. Please provide identification. Lord Hood, it's me, Chief answered. My word, is that really you, John? We all thought you were dead. It's comforting to hear your voice, son. Where are you? Lord Hood replied. I don't know, but I'll send you the coordinates of this vessel when I find them, Chief said. And where's Cortana, Chief? Lord Hood asked. She didn't make it, sir. John anguished. Sorry to hear that. We couldn't have won the war without her. I just hope she went out honorably, Lord Hood said. She did, sir. She did. And that's the end of my story. I hope that you enjoyed. Like I said in the intro, I'm a big fan of both of these universes and always thought that they would be great in a game or movie together. Halo 4 and Metroid Prime were, of course, my two big inspirations for this story, as I felt that they were similar enough that a story mixing the two would make a lot of sense. In a way, this video kind of felt like old school rewriter, which I thought was fun. But anyway, let me know what you think of my story in the comments below. And please give me your suggestions for more videos like this. I would love to see what universes you guys would want to see collide. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you enjoy the rest of my content, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, everyone, and this is the Rewriter writing out.